All right, let's do the Mr. Blank thing. What's up?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can
All
see
right.
you. We can see you too.
Good. All right. Yeah, sorry about last time.
That's all right. You mean when you were in the middle of the woods and tried to do an interview with me?
Yeah. I thought I had good enough internet. It just didn't work.
Yeah, being out in the middle of nowhere is conducive for that.
Yeah. Well, it was a team building exercise that we were doing out there. I had to be out there.
That's good, because we were all sitting here doing nothing. So for people who don't know who you are, can you tell people who you are and where we can find you online?
So I'm Mr. Blank Toys, Mux Blank on Instagram and Facebook. You can find my website at mrblankisdead.com. Let's see. I also host Joker TV every week, every Thursday night at 6:30 Eastern time. And you can find us on jokertv.com or just search on YouTube. We've got everything there. But so that's mostly what I do.
So of all the people that I know in the scene, I have to say, like, you're probably like one of the most creative and talented in so many different ways. Like,
Yeah.
there is so much that you do. Can you just start at the beginning? Because it's like we could talk about any one of the things for hours, but like,
Yeah.
right, you do music and you do the films and the podcast and the toys and the performance art and the like.
Yep. And I mean, I've just been doing, I jump from thing to thing, whatever interests me the most. So, anytime there was even a time when I was like, oh, I'm going to create video games. And so I started learning how to create video games. And, I managed to make one level, like demo video game, but, it didn't get any further than that. It started getting a little too beyond what I could do. So, but, I just
more
like
video
trying
games than I ever made.
Yeah. Well, I like just trying different things all the time and, expanding what I can do. So,
I mean, can you talk just a little bit about each of those aspects of your life before we dive into the toy part, which is what we're here to talk about?
Well, toys, Mr. Blank Toys. So
before the toys, talk about everything else but the toys.
Okay. So I've been in a band, Rat Babies, for about let's see, I guess since 2005. And we're kind of like a sludge metal kind of thing. And then I do a solo side project called Mr. Blank, which is me doing mostly experimental music, some abstract experimental theater, performance art, things like that. I've traveled the southeastern United States doing sideshow and vaudevillian kind of performance art, which sideshow type stuff, like driving nails in my face, stapling money to me, walking on broken glass, things like that, crazy shit. A lot of stuff that hurt, so I don't do that as much anymore. Every once in a while, I kind of pepper some of those things into my performance art, like, piercing myself live with needles on stage and things like that. I'll work that into my performance art sometimes.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Sure.
So is there no trick to that? It's just convincing yourself that it doesn't hurt when it really does? Like,
well, I mean, a needle, it doesn't hurt that much. I mean, it does if you tense up and you're afraid of it. So, then it hurts a little more. But like, I mean, there's some things you can do, like different places on your body don't hurt as bad as other places. Like when I had people stapling money to me, that was a real staple gun. It was real staples. It was really stapling it to me, but on the arm or like on the belly, that wasn't so bad. Like on the legs hurt a little bit more, things like that. So,
But is it going into muscle or it's just going through skin?
well, a long enough needle is going to go, I guess, a little bit into the muscle,
Oof.
but yeah, I mean, it's real. It's totally real. Like there's a couple like tricks that I was doing that might have looked more real than ones that were real and then that kind of looked fake. So I'd kind of pepper them back and forth between the two different kinds of performances, and so I wouldn't give away that, oh, this thing I'm doing right now is fake. But most of what I'm doing is real in some way, and it's just you got to sort of find the way that either it doesn't hurt so bad or it's safe to do, like walking on broken glass, for instance. I'm really doing that barefooted, but if I use the right kind of glass, which is wine bottles. Wine bottles are the best because they break as big chunks. They're not as sharp as like beer bottles. They don't splinter up, so like knowing those few little things helps a little bit.
I think we need to stop talking about this. So let's just talk about creativity in general. Like, was there a certain age at which you knew that?
I've just always been. I mean, it was actually something I had to fight with my parents about all the time. I was a very creative person. I painted paintings that my parents didn't really like, and they would try to take and destroy and things like that because they were, well, whatever reason they had, so it was kind of always.
I want to know that reason so bad.
Well, I mean, you just had a Christian on there a minute ago,
Right?
and
Okay.
that was kind of the issue that
Sure.
my mom's Christian, and she has her ways of looking at things that I don't agree with, and so even as a kid, I knew I was creative. I remember like when I was really young and all I had was coloring books, I would try to outdo my parents, with how I colored or whatever, and so I remember, as far back as I can think, I've always been creative. And, I guess it wasn't until maybe my teenager years when I really kind of realized what that meant and that I wanted to be an artist.
And have you had, other day jobs to support yourself through the years? That
Yeah, oh yeah. I've worked in restaurants, cook and dishwasher. I've delivered pizzas. I've delivered newspapers. I worked in factories. My father used to own a business, and I most of my life I worked there. Helping him run that business, and that was a lawnmower shop. He repaired small engines and chainsaws and go-karts, things like that. So, I've always had something else that I did. Right now, I, don't do as much of a real day job. Um,
so
you know,
you sort of figured out a way to like live and have the creativity pay for your existence?
I've figured out how to live. I haven't figured out how to get
Huh.
anything to pay for anything yet.
Right.
I don't have any money, but my rent's like, $200 a month. So $200 a month isn't hard to come up with.
Right.
So I can do a couple odd jobs here and there, and make enough money to pay my rent. And then I'm able to spend, the majority of my time just working on creative projects.
Got it. And so talk about how so you're doing all of these different creative things, doing all this different art. How does toys and the resin action figure fit into that? How do you just run me through like your sort of like origin story? How did you discover
Well,
it?
it started with Buzzard Guts, Dane Marks. He was really my first
Buzzard
introduction.
guts.
Yeah, he was my first introduction into the toy world, because at the time I was doing a like a arts and craft event where different vendors would set up tables or booths or whatever, and I was organizing that. It was called the Moonlight Gypsy Market, and it was more of an arts and craft fair that happened at night, usually at in a parking lot or in a outside around a bar or something like that downtown in Athens. And Dane was one of the vendors, or I mean, he was a friend of mine, and I eventually talked him into being one of the vendors because he always told me that toys didn't make any money at arts and crafts fairs, So so that was my first introduction to it. I think at some point I asked him to make some toys of the performers that were in my Carney troupe, that we were doing shows, like the sideshow stuff. And so I wanted to make every character in our troupe be an action figure. And so he created one of me. I wish I would have brought that. That would have been cool. But he made one of me and one of the other guys. And, so then at some point, with me and Dane being friends, I saw what he was doing and I showed more of an interest in it. And, I started doing some of the artwork for some of his figures, like the Pee-wee P.O., what was the other one? The one that was the mixture of Aliens and Star Wars, I forget what he called that one. And a couple other ones, I did some of the artwork because I was good at Photoshop. And he had this idea. Basically, he was taking 80s movies and turning them into Star Wars movies. Yeah, Alien Empire, that's what it was. Yeah, thanks, Dane. And and so, like, we were just, like just throwing ideas back and forth of like different movies that could be turned into Star Wars, ripoffs and stuff. And one of them, the Force Ghostbusters, I had an idea that I wanted to sculpt for that. And so I was like, hey, I know these are your ideas, but I've got this one that I want to do that's for, Force Ghostbusters. And it was a Slimer, type character. So a Slimer and a Yoda mixed together. So I did that, and that was pretty much my first real release. And then and I just put that out myself. My first release with you was the No Toys for Us, the homeless Jeffrey one.
Right. That was fantastic. Those sold out like really fast.
Yeah, like instantly. And I mean, that right there, like that happening, I'd never expected something that, like toy wise that I was doing to really sell that well. And, for that to happen, that really encouraged me. And it was like, oh, okay, people like this, what I'm doing.
So it's not all Dane's fault. It's partially my fault too.
Yeah, well, you and Dane, yeah, you're the reason this happened.
Right. So can we talk about that year at DesignerCon? So you sort of like brought your performance art to DesignerCon. We released the Jeffrey figure, and then you decided to like dress up in your like homeless Jeffrey outfit, like Jeffrey from Toys R Us, Jeffrey, everybody.
Well, I mean, I've done a bunch of like traveling around and performing on the side of the street, for cash here and there. I used to do that a lot here in downtown with a TV on my head. And so I went around as TV head guy. So I did that for years, and I made a little bit of money doing that. So anytime I would hit the road, I would do performance art on the street or in a bar with my band. And that year we had my band had an opportunity to go out to California and record. I'm in Georgia, so that was a long trip for us. And we drove out there. So I was like, it just so happened to be around the same period as DCON was happening. So I said, for sure, I'm going to be making an appearance at DCON, and I sewed together that costume. I made that costume from scratch and brought that with me. So
I think you're missing the most important part of the story.
What you mean where I almost got kicked out?
is when you decided to just sit down outside of the Anaheim Convention Center
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And
I was walking around inside first, and
yeah, but nobody cared when you're walking inside because there's all a
yeah,
bunch of freaks dressed up inside. That's totally
yeah.
fine. But
So then, yeah,
outside, you were sitting on the ground with like a bucket, like,
and a
and pretending to
suitcase.
be in character, right?
Yeah,
But like,
exactly.
sort of like asking for money, right?
Mhm. And
And
I
so,
had I had a suitcase, and had made a specific colorway. I think that was I can't remember which one that was. He had a sign that said "Decon or die,"
right.
and and so I made like 20 of those. So I had a suitcase with those sitting in it, and then I made some. I took some trash cardboard from from behind the convention, and I made some like cardboard toys, like there on the spot.
Those are still some of my favorite toys, like ever.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I
but here, the part of the story is you were sitting there with like a change bucket
and I had
outside
a drum,
with a drum, and so
yeah, bongo drums.
security, like, they had to like call Ben, who runs the show, and like, what's up with this dude, because they thought you were just like this weirdo, like begging for money
Yeah,
outside of a convention. But I guess,
yeah, and
yeah.
I mean, somebody came out there, was like, "You can't do this out here," and I already had tickets, I already had a pass to get in. Um, so since I had a pass to get in, I was like, okay, well, fuck it, I'm just going to go back inside, and I'll do it in there. And so
So
oh yeah, there you go.
I'm just gonna show this to everybody.
Yeah, that's the
So
one. Yeah,
this is the figure that's sold out. But oh, this is the DCON one. But this, he
yeah,
was dressed up like this. He had
yeah.
this big thing on that. Was amazing.
Yeah, it was about like 3 feet tall. And so, I would wear it, and like I could see out the neck. I had little holes in the neck and I could see out. But yeah, it was like huge. So I went back inside, and at first they didn't like really mess with me in there. But after a few minutes, like, of going up and down the aisles and trying to sell my cardboard toys, like, security came back up to me and was like, "You can't do that in here." And I was like, you know what? I know I can. I know it's okay. I know Ben, so just go talk to Ben, and Ben will tell you it's okay. And and so they left. And then a few minutes later, like, I started getting surrounded by the security. I had at least like 3 or 4 people following me everywhere I went. And like, they were all looking like they were just ready to like just grab me and drag me out of there. But I was just ignoring them. And a couple of times I'd get selfies with people, and we'd make sure that you could see the security guard in the background and stuff like that. But and then after a while, like after me telling them to go find Ben, after a minute they just disappeared, and I never heard from him again. So I was like, okay, Ben was cool about it.
Wow. So let's just show the toys that you made with cardboard while sitting in a parking lot, like
Oh wow.
begging for change.
Yeah.
Here's I love the packing tape as the blister.
Yep.
There's RTD2, Leia, Laya, Jawa, Dark Vader, and Chewie, all editions of 5.
Yeah, I did 5 of each of those.
Yeah, who are the other 4 suckers that got them?
There was a couple people. I gave a couple away to kids and stuff like that, but
Security. And then there was they all came wrapped in this little, they all fit nice and snug.
Oh yeah.
In this little thing here.
Yeah.
I was stoked when I got it. That was like, my favorite thing that year at DCON.
Yeah, I came and hung out over there by your booth for a little bit, and I was like, I sat down on the floor in front of your booth for a little bit. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Nice. And so on your creative journey, like, does it feel like you'll make toys forever? Or are you always looking, like you said, you start making video games? Is this just one stop on the road? Or
Well, I mean, like, in my art, I'm like doing the bootleg kind of thing is something that's new for me. But like using toys in my art has always been something I've done.
Mhm.
You know, I've got old art that, you know, has Barbie doll pieces in it, or, you know, just different things in it. So, you know, I've always done that, and baby doll heads, I've always used those in my art and stuff like that. So I think, you know, no matter what, you know, that's always going to be sort of a thing that I do. But doing small sculptures that I package like a toy, you know, as far as I know, I'm going to keep doing that as long as people keep buying them. So, but you know, like it's always going to be using toys or using pieces of other things in my art will always be part of what I do.
So is this lifestyle that you've, created for yourself, like, is this enough for you? Like, have you made it? Is this
Well, I mean, what do you mean by made it? You know, like I don't have
I
any
guess
money.
I
I
guess
don't
it
have any, you know,
I guess it depends. It's your definition. Like, some
yeah.
people are not happy unless they have a certain amount of money in the bank.
No, I'm
Usually, if they achieve that, then they realize they're still unhappy. So, um, it's it's usually not the thing that the things that make people happy.
yeah,
Unless you're a sick and twisted collector like me, then it's always just like the acquisition of things. Because if
yeah.
you don't get like satisfaction from other people, it's like, well, I can buy this thing and this will make me happy.
Well, I
I
mean,
think.
for me, it's if I'm doing the art,
Mhm.
doing art, like the process of doing art, that's what makes me happy.
Mm.
So, you know, I mean, in fact, you know, when I'm done with a toy, like I'm done with it. Like, you know, I'm thankful for people like you who can sell it for me, so I don't have to worry about it after that. But like, just the doing the art and sharing art, like what we do with Joker, you know, that's where I get my enjoyment. You know, so.
Got it.
I,
So
I I have to do art. I mean, even when I you know worked a normal job and things like that, like I would get in trouble all the time for being over here sketching something on a piece of paper or writing something down instead of working. You know, like I would get in trouble for that all the time.
mhm.
Like I can't help. I have to do art. Like there, you know, that's part of my soul.
and
So,
and how old were you when you realized that if you didn't do art, you were not functioning well?
um, well, I mean, I guess probably in my early teens when I really like started painting and drawing, you know, more than just a little sketches here and there or in my coloring books or whatever. You know, like once I got to that point where I realized I'm doing art and that I'm good at it, you know, and that I like doing it, it just comes sort of natural to me. I don't have to try. It's just something that just like seeps out of me. When I sort of realized that, you know, I knew from at that point that my goal was to live as an artist and find a way to support myself as an artist. You know, I mean, I'm still haven't been able to, you know, monetarily support myself, but you know, I have definitely built my world around creating art. You know, that's all my world's about, you know.
So it seems to me like there's no other choice.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I have to create art. I like, you know, I don't know that I've ever lived a period where I mean I couldn't create. You know, I always find a way. You know,
mm,
it doesn't matter. I'll pick up stuff off the ground outside and I'll create art with it, you know. So yeah,
mm,
I just can't even imagine not doing art.
right. Imagine a world without artists. Um, so let's talk about Joker TV. Like, the previous conversation with Abraham and doing Yucko and doing not doing Yucko, doing Toys on Tap.
Mm.
Um, was it sort of like being a member of like the press and being an artist? Have you experienced any conflict there? Because you're sort of like reviewing toys, aren't
Well, you know, I guess my style is not really to review,
you? Hmm.
it's to share.
Mm,
So like I've never, I mean, even when I was a kid, I did zines. or I did, as soon as I learned how to build websites, I'd build websites that were, kind of like digital zines. So I was always sharing, either my thoughts, and my writing and my art, or other people's arts and other people's poems and thoughts and things like that. So like sharing people's art
Mhm.
and encouraging other people to do art any way I can is part of me doing art, because I had a hard time making art as a kid, because
Mhm.
I had to fight with my parents about that. Like they didn't like my art. They would try to, it wasn't so much as like trying to get me to not be an artist. It was
Mhm.
just my subject matter and my style or whatever that they didn't appreciate and didn't care for.
Mhm.
That, so now it's, for me, it's being able to help encourage other people to do art, inspiring people to do art, and making it easier for them to do art. As far as like Joker, I can share their art with the world.
Mhm.
That's always been a goal of mine. That's always something I try to strive to do. So
And do you have brothers and sisters?
yeah, I have a brother. In fact, I'm at his house right now. So
Oh, and is he an artist too?
no. No.
And no creative.
I
Uh,
mean, he can write poetry. He's very good at writing poetry.
mhm.
Um, and that's about where his, at one point he, talked about doing some sort of like spoken word or hip hop, rap type stuff. But he never really followed through with most of that stuff. But I think it's still big part of him.
Yeah, I mean, at the core of it, I think everyone is creative in some way. It
Yeah, yeah.
just society sort of tells us, "Oh, you're good at this one thing," and then you know you keep doing that one thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
creativity is a rough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Some.
mean, yeah, the idea of Joker, like that happened when the pandemic happened, so my band couldn't go on tour anymore. I couldn't do shows at my house, which that was sort of a normal thing for me to do, is when bands of friends of mine and stuff like that would come through Athens out of town, they would play my house and stuff like that. So when we couldn't do that anymore, we were like, we've got to do something. I've got to do art.
I'm sorry. What does that mean? Play your house?
Play a show at my house.
Just like a band comes to town to play a gig locally, and then they also play at your house.
Yeah, or
Just
only at my house, maybe not a real gig downtown at a bar or anything. They're playing in my backyard or in my living room.
and how many people do you have to your house when someone plays your house?
As many as possible, but usually we'd get about, 20 or 30 people show up.
And how often would this happen?
A couple times a month.
That's amazing. I don't think that sentence would ever come out of my house, out of my
Yeah,
mouth. It's like, hey, there's a band, they're playing my house.
yeah.
It's
Well,
like
I mean,
it's a stop on their tour, my
yeah.
house.
Well, I mean, I've been on tour and I've played people's houses many, many times. And so, that's just part of the, punk rock world, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
in fact, I sort of prefer play somebody's house over playing a bar, because everybody's a little more excited about a house show than a real show that they have to go pay $10 to get into.
sure. Dane says that you should do shows in the DKE warehouse.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's great. Like, ah! Like, no, too close.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, what was it about the toys that resonated? I know you said that you saw Dane doing it. Did you have nostalgia for the particular, for 3 3/4 inch or Star Wars as a kid?
Actually, no, because I've never been a collector really. I collect people's art, that I know and I've done shows with, or there's some history a little bit. So I like having friends of mine's art, but I've never been really a collector. As a kid, I never got to play with toys. I wasn't really allowed to buy Star Wars toys or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or He-Man or anything because they were all, evil. So,
Mm,
so I wasn't really allowed to have that type of stuff. My toy, my games and my play was go outside, ride your bike,
right.
play with that stuff. So,
And how do you think? Well, there's that book. I have that book on my shelf. What's it called? Like Terror in the Toy Box? Is that what it's called? It's that one, where like how evil the toys are. Uh, Turmoil in the Toy Box. Thank you,
yeah.
Ian. As he ran in here and then ran back out. Turmoil in the Toy Box. If you're watching this, you should Google it. They're available on Amazon used for like $5. It's very entertaining, and it's all about how these toys on TV are just rotting kids' brains and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was even, stories of like Smurfs coming alive and people on people's shelf and stuff like that was spread throughout, the people that I knew when I was a kid, like they believed that stuff. They believed that, that
Oof.
the Smurfs were evil and that, magic was evil and
Okay, but I
know.
mean, the Smurfs were communists. I mean,
Well, they didn't look at it as communists were evil. They were like Smurfs are magical creatures and that makes them evil.
like Papa Smurf is like Karl Marx, and Brainy looks like what's his face, and then everyone like Handy's got his hammer, and Farmer Smurf's got his sickle, and like everyone like to each their own, and unto them. I mean, this is like Karl Marx shit, not like Russian,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, like Smurfs total allegory for communism. And if you get the book about the art book about the Smurfs, like I mean, Peo, like he grew up in Brussels in the 20s or whatever, is totally plausible. Could have, read Karl Marx and been into that. But they have a paragraph about it, they explain it, and then they're like, but that's not true. That's a bunch of bullshit. And it's like, dude, okay. And then Gargamel, what did Gargamel want to do to the Smurfs?
You wanted to
He
eat
wanted
them?
to he wanted to capture them to turn them into gold.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. So
Yeah.
he was the capitalist, right? And
Yeah.
it was not a coincidence that he had a big nose. But anyway, we'll go on to
And
another
I mean,
subject.
I wasn't really even allowed to watch that, like
Right.
any of those cartoons, like I would sneak it, like before my parents got home from work, after I got home from school, I would sneak watching Inspector Gadget and,
Mhm.
shows like that. But
Can you
like,
imagine that you'd have to like sneak watch Inspector Gadget? Oh God. So how is are your parents still alive?
yeah, yeah.
And they still have they softened, or they still
Oh
are they
no, no,
no, okay.
no,
And so how do you think, has this created a rift in the relationship, or are you still on good terms?
no, no, not on good terms at all.
Not on
I
good
mean,
terms.
maybe a little more recently, my dad, I've gotten a better relationship with in the last couple months because he almost died of COVID.
Hmm.
And so when that happened, I had to like go and try to take care of the family business or whatever. He owns a house or whatever. So we ended up having more to do with each other, and since then we're kind of like a little better relationship. But
Hmm.
I haven't really even like seen or talked to my mom, and I mean, not as a real person for 15, 20 years,
Wow. But I mean,
so.
she still thinks Smurfs are going to come alive and shit.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure she does. Or
I
she at
mean,
least thinks they're evil,
that's hard to
but I
have a
mean,
relate.
for her it's it's the magic, the magic and fantastical nature of these cartoons and characters, they're sort of all to her based on witchcraft and based on, astrology, or based on, war, like GI Joes couldn't have those because that was war, so
I mean, if she was a pacifist, like preaching like peace, that's fine, but that's not, no, yeah, no.
yeah.
I,
So I mean that kind of like, that's why I think that I never really got into collecting toys,
Hmm.
But
how do you think growing up in that environment has affected you today? I guess, and affected your art, like,
that's a long conversation. Um,
let's try to encapsulate that into 5 minutes.
I don't know. I guess, like, for me, the best thing I could say about that is that when because I had to fight to be an artist, that being an artist was my true nature, and I knew that.
Mhm.
And I was expressing myself through my art, and I had to fight that. So in a way, that made me more determined to be myself, and to care about what I cared about, no matter whatever anybody else cared about.
I mean, having being estranged from your parents is rough, but it sounds to me, as far as learning to be creatively fulfilled, kind of did you a favor.
Yeah, in a way.
I mean, you had
Yeah.
to double down on your creativity and not look back, and then the rest is history. It's
Yeah.
like,
And I've always been a DIY artist. I've always worked with junk. I've always worked with, things I found around me. As a kid, I remember riding my bike down to Walmart to buy art supplies with my allowance, or something like that, from mowing grass or whatever. So, it was always me doing it for myself. And so, yeah, I mean, in a way, of course, that helped me, I think, as an artist,
yeah,
I
I
don't.
forgot who told me this. Oh, it was my neighbor was describing her demeanor versus her husband's, and her husband parents always told him that he was great and he was wonderful, and sort of he spends his life sort of like unhappy and unfulfilled,
Mm,
and like her parents were kind of dicks, and always like she sort of had to find herself,
yeah,
and she lives her life and is fulfilled and happy.
yeah.
So go mistreat your children, everybody.
Yeah, don't let them be artists.
Yeah.
Then they'll definitely be artists.
Wow. All right, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad that we got this recorded
Yeah, man.
here. Everyone here, I know, is a huge fan of yours, and
We dug in a little deep there.
hey, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Keep up the good work. We're always
Well,
rooting for you, man.
just I guess everybody watching, check out Joker TV. It's every week, and we do an hour or two every week, and we're sharing music videos, short films, animations. If you've got toy commercials, if there are any toy artists out there and you want to promote your toy, please, like, make us a commercial. We'll show it. It's all, we don't charge anybody to show that stuff. So, and the show is free, of course, too, on YouTube, so anybody can watch it. But we rely on the submissions to keep our show going. So,
Awesome. Figure
Oh,
Fetish says, I want my Joker TV.
thanks,
Whoa!
Jason.
All right,
Thanks,
dude.
Jason.
Thank you again. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time.
All right. See you, man.
Have a
Thanks.
good one. Amazing.